We back. Apologize for that. Program. Apologize for that. What questions you guys got? Yeah, we are grinding back on this. Sorry, guys. Let me get this link back out there. Get you out of the green room. All right, got the crew back on. Hey, sorry about that, fellas. The Vaddy, you were talking about JT Barrett. Apologize for that.
What happened? Did you kick me out? What happened there?
No, I didn't kick you out. We're live, so we are live back on the show. So I don't know what happened, but hey, little technical difficulties. Never hurt nobody.
Oh
So,
yeah, no, no. I just thought that I think that we've become. We were talking about toughness and are we tough? I just think that we've become a finesse team. We have a very high skilled team. We play kind of a finesse style. We practice a finesse style, and that's kind of who we are. And I think that that's something that not to sound like an old fogey, but I think that those types of teams have always struggled in the Big Ten. Late November when the weather gets a little bad, and I think we've got to get back to being a little bit tougher. Taking a little bit more of a stern approach to things. And I think it starts with I honestly believe it starts, and it started today with C.J. Stroud running the football. I think that sends a message to your entire team that we are all in. We're not worried about anybody getting hurt or saving themselves for the NFL or waiting for next year or whatever it is. Like, we're all in this year to play, to win, to do whatever we have to do to make it work. And I thought it was great that he did it, and I'm sure glad he did because, like I said, his legs are the reason we won today.
So give me your playoff top four. Tuesday they come out. Obviously, you don't have to say Georgia at 1. What do you have after that?
Well, I think it goes Georgia, and then, boy, I don't think you can knock Ohio State down, especially after this craziness that kind of went on today. I think Ohio State stays at number 2, and then, whew, you know, Michigan, TCU. It's tough. I think the Final Four, when this whole thing's said and done, I think it's going to go Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon, and TCU. I think that's going to be the Final Four in the playoff, and I think that's going to be kind of a fun playoff just because you're going to see some teams that haven't been in there in a little bit, and I think it's going to be Ohio State, Georgia in the final, and it's going to be a heck of a ball game.
Do you think if Tennessee runs the table, they don't make the SEC championship and they have one loss, they are left out of the dance?
Yeah, I do. I think they are. Yeah, I don't see any way that I think especially when you're talking about expanding the college football playoff. You just have to understand just the kind of the tenor of things right now. If you're not a conference champion, and let's face it, the final score today was a little closer. It was kind of a shame that it ended up as close as it was. They were only down by 2 scores because they really were outclassed in that game, thoroughly the whole way. But the Alabama win, they've kind of lost the luster of the Alabama win because Alabama just lost to LSU. So I'm not really sure what their resume would be for to get in there. I know Ohio State's resume just got a lot better with Notre Dame hammering Clemson. So yeah, I think that they're going to have a hard time making an argument for. I think this is the perfect year to have 4 teams from 4 different conferences, and I think that's what we'll see.
Yeah, I shout out Marcus Freeman getting that done. That was huge for us. Knocks them out of the picture completely. Any chance that we see Ohio State and Michigan both in the playoff now? We get a close Michigan loss in Columbus. You talked about that before. I don't know. We talked about that. It's almost like we spoke into existence by Clemson losing.
It could happen. I mean, you if you beat Michigan on a last-second field goal or overtime or something like that, then who has a better loss than that? That would be the best loss by anybody. And I'd sure love to see them run that back one more time. Even though I never like to see Michigan happy, so I just want Ohio State to take care of their business, hammer them, send the Wolverines back into obscurity like they've been for the past 2 decades, and not have to see with those guys again. But no, they if they manage to keep it close, they could actually make a good argument for running it back in the playoff. But I really do think this year the college football committee is going to want to get 4 teams from four different conferences. I just feel like that's the way the wind's blowing, and I think the way this year's setting up is perfect for that.
I think it'll be very interesting to see if Oregon runs the table, win the Pac-12, and you compare the Georgia loss in Athens to Oregon, with Tennessee, to Oregon's loss that was also it was at the Mercedes-Benz Dome, and they got absolutely demolished by Georgia week 1. That'll be an interesting thing for them to talk about. Who do you think are the 4 best teams in college football? Leave the playoffs out of it. Who are the 4 best teams in your mind in college football?
Well, I mean, you talk about today, like right now, this moment.
Like who would you, if you're Ohio State, if they say, okay, Nevada, you got to play, what are the 4 teams that you would not want to see if you're Ohio State? I mean, Georgia's
Well,
one, obviously.
I'm telling you, LSU is really good, and that quarterback that LSU can run around and really, really make some things happen. And not, they are going to be a handful for anybody that would be playing them. And I think Oregon's playing really well right now. I've been watching. A lot of people kind of lose them out there on the West Coast, but I think Oregon's playing at a really high level as well. So I think there's some teams this year that the one thing they all have in common though is the running quarterback. Every single one of those teams has got a running quarterback. Every single one of those teams, plays with that thing. And I know everyone's going, "Oh, Nevada, you're talking about the running quarterback again." But it's so obvious. Watching the Cal USC game right now and watching Caleb Williams run around out there. I mean, it's the way it's going. It's the way that the football's played right now. And hopefully Ohio State's embraced that today. Hopefully this was an eye opener. I really think this could be one of those games that, much like Dwayne Haskins. Dwayne Haskins had a very similar game like this against Maryland, where he kind of figured out the magic of the quarterback run and started doing it, making some things happen. I think he had 3 touchdowns on the ground that day, and I think this could be a turning point for C.J. Stroud in terms of his development, and if so, I think it could be a big change for the OSU offense as well.
Well, it's interesting because also your other Los Angeles goal, Dorian Thompson Robinson, wow, 7 for 71 and a touchdown already. So the running quarterback thing, it's so obvious when you're right about something and how difficult it is to defend. I mean, Nick Saban, for as great as he is, couldn't defend Cardale Jones running it. He struggled with LSU because it's hard to go against. I mean, Bill Belichick couldn't stop Justin Fields and a bunch of practice squatters on the O-line for the Chicago Bears. I mean, they went out to Gillette Stadium and beat the New England Patriots because they put in designed runs for Justin Fields. Because at the end of the day, it's all about getting the win. It's not about stats and this whole notion of, I got to protect myself and I got to be whatever. I'm like, no, you can go run and you can go slide. You don't have to. I'm not saying drop the shoulder and be Jerome Bettis. I'm just saying run and slide. I mean, a lot of these guys do. Kyler Murray is an absolute smurf, and he's the king of running and sliding. He'll go get 8 yards, slide, nobody hits him, kaboom. Because that guy's not built to take any sort of punishment, and he's an expert at it. He's an expert at running and getting that free yardage. So we're going to talk Michigan for a few minutes. We'll wrap this thing up. It's getting late. What gives you such a high confidence level that we will beat the Michigan Wolverines on the Saturday after Thanksgiving?
Well, I just think Michigan has not played a challenging road game this year. I'm talking about a challenging home environment, and you can just tell those teams that can get rattled in terms of those situations. You see it. You've seen little cracks in the armor with Michigan already this year. Also, Michigan's a run first team, and if you want to stop a team, with your crowd and with your going, you stop them on the ground with your big run blitzes, with your things that are going, and you take that away from them. You make them pass. You make them do the things that they don't want to do, and the game gets away from them. And I think, conversely for Ohio State, we're going to be able to, operate our offense at peak efficiency in that situation. I mean, obviously the big wild card would be inclement weather, because I do think that is it's a something for an offense, but it's not like it's going to be a wind tunnel out there in Ohio Stadium and the wind blowing 40 miles an hour or something like that. But I like I said, I've had a great feel for this Ohio State team all year. I just feel it in my bones. I've called every game right so far. I'll feel better as we're kind of going up the weeks in terms of doing it. But I think that the matchup is so good for Ohio State, and I think there's things that we can do well that just can take the game away from them and make things really really difficult for Michigan to operate and operate at peak efficiency.
Yeah, I agree. I like again. It feels a lot like '06 to me. It feels like we had that crappy game, crappy stadium. We played Illinois. They played Northwestern. Low energy, cold, miserable. Terrible away locker room. The whole thing sucks. And then you go out, you play like garbage, get the win, get home. You get blistered by your fan base. You get blistered by the coaching staff. And you got to look in the mirror and you gotta get the thing right and cranked up and running hot again as we lead into Michigan. The only difference between us is like we only had one game against Northwestern to get right for Michigan. These guys, they got two. Thankfully they got Indiana. That was announced as a big noon kickoff on Fox noon next week, and then you've got the Maryland game out at Maryland. They lost to a resurgent Wisconsin team. Wisconsin's back to ground and pound running the ball. Beat a 6-2 Maryland team that kind of walked into a fist fight today. And I agree with you. I think we're going to handle Michigan. I think that this has been a long time coming. I don't think that they're as good physically as they were last year. They had, Aiden Hutchinson obviously went 2 overall in the draft. And then they had the other end who tore his Achilles during the draft process, or else he probably would have been a top 15, top 20 pick. So they had 2 legitimate defensive ends last year. This year, they have Mozzie Smith, who is a freakazoid defensive tackle. I know there's been a lot of lies told in the history of the world, but this kid weighs like 340, and they said he has a 44-inch vertical. I'll believe that when I see it. I think that's about as funny of a. Bruce Feldman does his freaks list, and he was number 1 on the list for having a 44-inch vertical weighing 340. I was like, there's literally no chance that's true, but it's a fun little myth that they can spread for that. But the kid's a good player. He's explosive. And again, if you look at our offense, I think our weaknesses are 2 and 3 receivers aren't playing well. We're not blocking well on the perimeter. And our guards, Donnie, I think is a fantastic prospect, but he's young. And when you're playing guard, your growing pains are shown in front of the entire world. They show up as 0-yard gains, loss of yards, sacks. There's nowhere to hide when you're playing guard at Ohio State. And Matt, I think, is hurt. I think Matt is laboring. He's not playing well. And I'm sure he's hearing about it from people that he's not playing well. So, some of these guys, I know these guys are prideful guys. I know they want to play better. And they got that 2-week run up before they're going to face the game of their lives when they play the Michigan Wolverines in the shoe in that redemption game. So Nevada, going to wrap this thing up. What needs to happen this week? What do we need to get better at as we see the Indiana Hoosiers at noon next Saturday in the Horseshoe? What does Ryan Day have to get corrected this week in practice?
Well, I just think we gotta get some guys healthy. We gotta get Trey back. We gotta get Mayan looked like he was laboring out there. I think we just gotta get our heads right. I think we gotta get our heads right around what we're doing about what our place is in the college football landscape. We've got to kind of take inventory of the good. Defensively, I think again. I think it's going to be hard to draw some conclusions off of this week because everything's going to work this week. Wisconsin outgained Indiana today. Wisconsin went into Indiana, outgained them 483 to 196, and blew them out. So everything we do next week is going to work against Indiana. We're going to be at home. Indiana's, there's not going to be any energy for them in terms of going out there. We're going to, and the mistake is going to be say, that all of our problems have been solved. The question is, can we embrace a philosophy that incorporates some legitimate constraint into these running plays that we're running? Can we make that a part of our offense? Can our second and third wide receiver start consistently beating press man coverage on the outside? And defensively, I think we've got a few questions on the defensive line, but I'll never understand. I understand some Ohio State fans were like tweeting at the sister of Jim Knowles, complaining about the Knowles defense or something. Which I don't. That one was like, what the heck? What is that? I think for Ohio State fans, I think in the immortal words of Aaron Rodgers, it's RELAX, relax. We're 9-0. We're second in the country. Everything's still in front of us, and just enjoy these games because you could be Clemson, you could be,
Mhm.
Tennessee, you could be Alabama tonight, and all your dreams are dead or dying or on life support, and we're the furthest thing away from that. The road runs firmly through Columbus, and we control our own destiny.
Yeah, I totally agree. Again, like as bad as it is, and as bad as we want to kick the dead horse and beat the team down, we still won. Clemson's flying home on the jet right now. They're sad. Their season's done. Playoffs are done. Dreams are dashed. Is what it is. Tennessee, they're on the ventilator right now. I mean, season's probably done. The stuff it's all razor's edge in college football, man. You have one bad Saturday and it all goes up in smoke. All the work, all the progress. So the most important thing I always tell people is just win every game by 1 point, and you'll be happy in the end. Because you can run the table up until you play in the title game or whatever. You got to win that last game. You got to keep getting better. And again, I think that when you see Georgia and you see how good Georgia is and how bad they waxed Tennessee today, and a team that Tennessee was number one according to the playoff people that are morons and didn't have Georgia at number one. I think that you say, hey, we better eat our Wheaties and we better get going. We better get right, man, because those guys they are no joke. I mean, they lost 9 guys to the NFL draft in their defense, and guess what? They're just as good as they were last year. Maybe a smidge down. They're not getting as much production in the pass rush. But last year's Georgia defense was probably the best in the history of college football. So, if you take a step down from that, it's still the best in the country, which is still good. And Kirby Smart has those guys playing hard. They play tough. They are vicious up front. So again, that's just that's what's you're staring down the pipe at because you're not the you're not the hunted anymore. Ohio State is not number one. I've been in the situations where we've been number one, wire to wire, and we thought we were the shit, and we weren't, and we lost. We're not that. Georgia is that. So it's almost better to be the hunter who can sneak up and start grinding and say, hey, look, we better get better, guys, because it's all in front of us. You can go win that title. You can go down as one of the great teams in Ohio State history. But the way we're playing against teams like Northwestern and Iowa and Penn State, and God bless those teams, but none of the kids on any of those teams have an offer from Georgia or Bama or Clemson or the superpower type schools, Ohio State. So there's going to be a level jump once we see those types of teams in the playoffs. I hope that you're right about getting in Oregon and getting in TCU because I think that would be great for Ohio State as opposed to seeing Tennessee, who I think is real, and Georgia especially, who I know is real. And it was great that Bama lost today because I think Bama, they're a dangerous team. They lost on a last second field goal and on a 2-point conversion in overtime. So they've got 2 losses, so they're going to be disqualified for the playoffs. But they lost on like the last play of 2 games and. In Death Valley, in Neyland Stadium. And that's why I thank God every day that we do not play in the SEC because we only have to play like one of those a year. We have to play it at Penn State or at Wisconsin or whatever. And it's not like, oh, God, we got to go to Neyland and now we got to go to LSU and we're Bama and we're the one that we circle on the calendar and the fans get all drunk and it's going to be a night game. It's going to be crazy and whatever. But I'm just glad that we play in the Big Ten where you get, if you just roll the helmets out, you're going to go, 11-1 in the Big Ten. There's one game you're probably have to show up like a Penn State. You're going to have to show up actually win Michigan. But otherwise, the Big Ten's so down with Ohio State's talent. You just roll the helmets out and you win. So it'll be really interesting. But yeah, I love Tippers. They're back to being Tennessee. I think you're right. Nevada, any close?
Yeah, my closing thoughts are what an amazing day for college football, and how different is this day going to feel when we take the playoff to 12 teams, and these aren't elimination games.
God.
These are just for seeding. It's going to feel different, and like people could talk about it, but like I love just the fact that it's like a season long playoff instead of a today these games, I'm not saying they would be meaningless, but they're less meaningful for sure
Oh,
in a 12-team playoff scenario. And today, when Ohio State's playing against Northwestern, you're not sitting there with your heart in your throat watching the game, realizing the entire season could end if somehow we make a bad play. If we lost to Northwestern today, we're not dropping out of the top 12. We're not dropping out of the top 10.
true.
So it's going to be different, and be careful what you wish for, because the magic of college football has always been, that exclusivity, that season-long tournament type of feel, and you take that away, and it's not college football anymore.
No, it's the NFL where it's like, you'll watch the Chiefs play the Bills week 10 or something, and if one team wins, the other team's not eliminated from anything. They're still going to be in the playoffs. You're probably still going to see them again in the FC Championship. But in college football, it's like you get, if you're Alabama right now and you've got all these fantastic players and you have 2 losses, you're done. That whole team's going to opt out. None of those guys are going to play in the bowl game. They're all going to go. I mean, it just that's just how it is. And when you go to 12 teams, I don't know. Like I'm with you. I like how intense and how important every week is in college football, because that's what makes it college football. That's why it's not college basketball. College basketball, they play 50 games, whatever it is, and they play the tournament, and nobody even cares until they get to the tournament, because they get 68 teams get into the tournament. So it's like, who cares before that? Like, why would you care? And so, no, I think that we're going to lose a lot. I think that greed and money drive everything, and with college football, it's the absolute perfect example of that phrase, because these guys are going to be playing, and I hate it for the kids. I really hate it for the kids. These kids are going to be playing another game. It's another game the parents have to pay for to fly to, and these games they're not in Canton, Ohio. They're in like Los Angeles or Scottsdale or Atlanta or Miami. I mean, and as soon as they announce where the games are, the flights get jacked up in price. The hotels are insanely expensive. I've had parents of players tell me they had to take out second mortgages because they got to go to the Big Ten title game, they got to go to the first round game, the second round game, and now a championship game afterwards. So it's basically you got to go to like 4 bowl games now, essentially, and it's brutal. And I hate it for the kids. I hate it for the players. The players aren't going to make any more money because of it, but the universities and the TV networks are going to make billions of dollars because of it. So is that fair? No. But is the NCAA a cartel on the labor of college football players? Sure. Absolutely. They always have been. So, any final thoughts, Nevada? We went down that wormhole. I think that that's something we should do a whole podcast on, is talking about the fading magic of these kind of weekends. Because I like when Ohio State played at noonday and they got that win, it was great, because then it's just time to be a fan, watch the big Tennessee Georgia game, watch the big night game at Death Valley. But I think all that's going to lose its luster to a degree when we expand. But your final thoughts on that, and we will wrap this up for you guys. Appreciate you guys tuning into this, by the way.
Yeah, no, just I like that feeling, like last week against Penn State when we were trailing, in the fourth quarter, and you just have that sick feeling watching the game, realizing how important it is, how everything's on the line, and I'm just going to miss that feeling. And maybe it'll get replaced by something different in the playoff or something, but I don't know. I have a feeling that we're going down a road that we can't reverse, and that when they expand these things, they never contract them. People forget that college basketball was a 16-team tournament until 1974, and then by 1985 it was 64 teams. And this 12 teams is only a way station. It's a way station to 16. It's a way station to 24. It's a way station to 32. Whatever. I don't know how big it's going to get eventually, but ruining the greatest regular season in sports, which college football absolutely is. Today was, like you said, I was glued to the TV from early in the morning till late at night watching games, because I was watching to see who was going to get eliminated, and not having that go away is gonna make me sad. But it is what it is. We're all getting older. The game's changing, and we got to embrace it. But it doesn't make it any easier, because today was a glorious day for college football.
Yeah, and it's still rocking. There's still a couple games out on the West Coast going on. We're going to tune into those after we get off. But I agree. I think that, when you start getting 3 lost teams into the playoffs, and you get like, and the other bad part is like it's hard to find 4 good teams. So when you move to 8 and then 12, and then you're going to get these matchups that are just like, the top four will probably get a bye, and then you'll have 5 versus 24 or whatever it is, and that'll be a massacre. It'll be unwatchable garbage. And it's a lot like what the Ohio High School Association, they expanded the high school playoffs, and you have some of the worst, you know, massacres of kids. Um, I mean, you see the number one team in the region playing the 16 team or whatever, and it's 77 to nothing, and kids are getting hurt. There's kids that are there was a 1-9 team in the state of Ohio that made the playoffs this year because they expanded the playoffs, and the region didn't have enough teams. So a 1-9 team has to go show up against the number one team in the state, and they get killed. And I don't know who that helps. And I think that's what's going to happen in the college football playoff, because right now, generally whoever goes against the superpower team, if it's been Bama or Georgia in the first round, if it's been Notre Dame or Cincinnati or whoever, they get killed. So there's not much compelling. So now take it down that many notches, and you've got a 3-loss Big Ten team playing against Bama or Georgia or whatever. Like, that's going to be terrible. No one wants to watch that. But it's TV ratings, and it's more stuff for the almighty dollar, and it kind of sinks. So wrap this, Nevada. Any final thoughts? And we'll be on BuckeyesCoop.com all day tomorrow. Big NFL Sunday, big recap. I'm going to have my column up on. I'm going to actually watch this game again. I'm going to have to pour me a drink before I do it, because it was painful to watch the first time. The second time is going to be even worse, I'm sure. But any final notes on this big victory over Northwestern and are likely being number 2 in the playoffs?
Nah, just enjoy every win, and like I said, don't take these things too seriously. The stuff it's fun. It should be fun. And if you want to have some fun, come to BuckeyesCoop.com and join us on the boards, because we do have an awful good time. It's the best part of my day every day going on there. And I'll see you guys on the message board.
Wrap this thing up. Appreciate you guys. Apologize for the technical difficulties. I was looking down and my thing said I had to reboot, so I had to switch streams. I apologize for that. Thank you guys for refinding me. You guys have been awesome. Thank you for the super chats. Appreciate you guys. Thank you, Randall, Eric, Temper. All you guys have been grinding, posting, asking great questions. We appreciate you guys. We are on BuckeyesCoop.com all day. We're going to have a ton of content up on the game tomorrow. Myself and Bill Green, generally, we do our stuff on Sunday. We like to rewatch the game. We want to watch all of the college football just so we're as knowledgeable as possible. So that's why we didn't do a live post-game show, because that Georgia-Tennessee game was too good. And honestly, if I was you guys, I'd want to tune into that over a recap of the Ohio State Northwestern game. So that being said, as always, thank you guys so much for supporting us. Thank you, Buckeye Nation. Thank you, Scoop family. I will see you guys on BuckeyesCoop.com. You guys have a great night. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Go Bucks.